Have you ever really thought about that tightrope nations walk? Trying to boost global trade while still protecting their secrets, their strategic interests?
It's a really complex stance, isn't it?
Yeah,
Especially with sensitive tech or uh, specialized goods floating around.
absolutely. Well, today we're doing a real deep dive into exactly that, U.S. export controls.
A critical topic.
Yeah, and my mission here, hopefully yours too, is to really unpack what these controls are. Why do they even exist? Who are the key players?
Mhm.
But what I really want us to get a handle on together is how they genuinely impact businesses, and the whole global trade
That
picture.
practical impact is key.
And just so everyone knows, we're drawing directly from the source here, official U.S. government websites, mainly the International Trade Administration.
Mhm.
So reliable stuff.
Which is good because understanding these regulations is just so critical now. And it's not just for the big multinational corporations, or even just people deep in international trade. It's key for anyone who's just curious about how countries manage these sensitive technologies and products globally.
Finding that balance.
Exactly. That delicate, constantly shifting balance between commerce and security.
Okay, so let's start with the fundamentals. Why bother? Why all these complex rules about what can leave the U.S.? What's the core reason?
Well, it really boils down to protecting national security interests. That's the number one.
Okay.
And promoting foreign policy objectives. Those are the big two.
So, like preventing bad actors from getting certain things.
Precisely. Preventing the spread of weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, and also stopping, the dangerous pileup of conventional weapons and related stuff that could destabilize a whole region.
That makes sense. But is this just a U.S. thing? Or are other countries involved?
That's a great point. No, it's absolutely not just the U.S. acting alone.
Ah, okay.
A huge part of this, often unseen, is deep international cooperation. The U.S. is part of various multilateral export control regimes.
So working together with allies and partners.
Exactly, working hand in hand.
Right.
While we're focusing on the U.S. regulations, the underlying strategy is really this shared global effort.
An effort to manage risks.
Yes, manage global risks and make sure that items, even things that seem purely commercial, don't fall into the wrong hands or, fuel instability.
Okay, so high stakes stuff, preventing proliferation, managing global risks. Who's actually pulling the levers on the U.S. side? Who's the main agency?
Right, the orchestrator, so to speak. That's the Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS.
BIS, and they're part of the Department of Commerce.
Correct. Part of commerce. And they're the ones administering the laws, the regulations, the policies for exporting and re-exporting what they just call items.
Items. That sounds broad.
It is. It covers commodities, actual physical goods, but also software and technology. It's a catch-all.
And the key rule book they use.
That's the EER, the Export Administration Regulation.
Got it.
And BIS's mission, stated pretty clearly, is advancing national security, foreign policy, and economic objectives. They want an effective export control system, but also promote U.S. tech leadership.
Interesting mix. So what exactly falls under these ear rules? Is it just military stuff?
Not exactly, and that's a really important distinction. The EER mostly applies to items that have commercial uses.
Okay, normal civilian products.
Right, but crucially, items that can also be used in things like conventional arms, WMDs, terrorist activities, or even human rights abuses, and also some less sensitive military items.
Ah, the dual use concept.
Precisely. That's the key. Think about maybe advanced computing chips. Great for AI research, but potentially useful for military guidance systems too.
I see. So it's not always obvious.
Not at all. And beyond those dual-use items, BIS also handles enforcing anti-boycott laws and coordinates with other agencies and countries. So their scope is quite wide.
Okay, so BIS is the main player. How do they actually operate day to day? What does the work look like?
Well, they have different arms. One key one is Export Administration, or EA.
VA.
And they're the ones reviewing the license applications. If a company wants to export, re-export, or transfer a controlled item, they often need a license from BIS. EA reviews those.
So if I want to ship something controlled, I go to them first.
Generally, yes. And EA also handles this really interesting kind of tricky area called deemed exports.
Deemed exports. What's that? Sounds like something that isn't actually exported.
Exactly. You might think controls only apply when a box leaves the U.S., right?
Yeah.
But a deemed export is about transferring controlled technology or source code to a foreign national within the United States.
Wow. Okay. So sharing technical info with a colleague who's a foreign national could be a deemed export.
It potentially could, depending on the technology and the individual's nationality. It shows how deep these rules go, even into, day-to-day technical discussions in a U.S. company.
That's definitely something businesses need to be aware of. Does BIS offer help with navigating this? It sounds complicated.
They do. Within that export administration arm, there's the Office of Exporter Services. They provide info on BIS programs. They run seminars on EAR compliance.
Training and guidance.
Yes, and you can ask for specific guidance on licensing questions. There's also an Office of Technology Evaluation, OTE, which analyzes export data. They even have a public data portal.
So resources are available. You can call them up.
Absolutely. The official guidance mentions consulting the EOR directly, submitting commodity classification requests if you're unsure how your item is controlled, or requesting written advisory opinions. They list contact numbers for D.C. and a Western regional office.
Good to know their support.
Yeah.
Now, what about the other side? Enforcement.
Right. Equally crucial. That's handled by BIS's Export Enforcement Division, or EE.
EE, the enforcement arm.
Yes. They're responsible for actually enforcing the ER. They work closely with U.S. embassies abroad, foreign governments, industry, trying to ensure secure exports.
And how do they enforce it? Audits, investigations?
All of that, potentially. But one really interesting tool they use are end-use checks, EUCs.
End-use checks. Tell me more.
Okay, picture this. A U.S. company gets a license and ships, say, a sophisticated piece of manufacturing equipment to a buyer overseas.
Right.
Well, sometime later, an officer from BIS Export Enforcement might actually conduct an on-site visit at the overseas facility.
Really? They go check it out in person?
Yes, globally. They call it an EUC. And the purpose isn't necessarily accusatory, it's verification.
Verifying what?
Verifying the reliability of the recipient. Are they who they say they are? Confirming their legitimacy, their bona fides, making sure they're complying with any license conditions, and crucially, ensuring the item is being used as stated and hasn't been, diverted or re-exported improperly.
Wow. So they follow the item to make sure it's being used correctly.
Exactly. It's about preventing diversion to unauthorized end uses or users, and the consequences are real.
What happens if they can't verify, or if a company blocks an EUC?
That's a big red flag for BIS. It could lead to increased scrutiny on future license applications for that foreign party. Or they could end up on BIS's unverified list, or even the entity list.
Which makes it much harder or impossible for them to receive U.S. exports in the future.
Precisely. It has serious implications for their ability to trade.
Those EUCs really highlight the seriousness, but you mentioned BIS provides tools to help companies comply before it gets to that stage.
Yes, definitely. They offer practical resources. They publish lists of red flags, warning signs that might indicate a transaction poses a risk of violating the ER.
Like warning signs to look out for.
Exactly. And they also provide know your customer guidance, basically advice on doing due diligence on your potential partners or customers.
So companies can be proactive.
Right. Plus, BIS offers a lot of training. Seminars ranging from the basics of EAR to really advanced topics. They even have an online training room for self-paced learning.
Okay, so help is there if you look for it. Now, you mentioned the EAR covers dual-use items. Does it cover everything exported from the U.S.?
No, that's another important point. The source material clarifies that the EAR does not regulate transactions involving all U.S. goods, services, and technologies.
So there are other rules, other agencies.
Yes. For example, items that are specifically designed or modified for military use, defense articles, and services, those are typically regulated by the State Department's Directorate of Defense Trade Controls under different regulations called the ITAR.
Ah, ITAR for military EAR for dual use, mostly.
That's a good general distinction, yes. So BIS-EAR is just one, albeit very significant, piece of the overall U.S. export control landscape.
Okay. You also mentioned screening lists earlier. Is there one main list to check?
Well, BIS helps coordinate something called the Consolidated Screening List, the CSL.
CSL Consolidated.
Yeah, think of it as a really helpful tool for businesses. It takes parties, individuals, companies, organizations that are subject to export restrictions by multiple U.S. government agencies.
Like state, treasury.
Exactly. Commerce, BIS, State, DDTC, and Treasury, OFAC. It compiles restrictions from 11 different screening lists into one single downloadable data feed.
Oh, wow. That sounds incredibly useful.
It really is. It helps industry conduct electronic screening of potential customers or partners against multiple government lists much more efficiently. A crucial compliance tool.
Absolutely. And all this information, the BIS details, the CSL, it's housed under the International Trade Administration website.
Correct. The ITA, which is also part of the Department of Commerce, manages the main trade.gov site where we found this source material.
And what's the ITA's broader role?
Their mission is huge, really. Promoting trade and investment for the U.S., strengthening the competitiveness of American industries, ensuring fair trade, making sure trade laws are followed.
So much bigger than just export controls.
Oh, yes. They offer a vast range of resources, market research, help with export processes, export solutions, info on trade agreements, even help resolving specific trade problems businesses face. Export controls are just one part of their portfolio.
It really paints a picture of a complex system with lots of support available if you know where to look.
Definitely. And if you step back and look at the whole system, U.S. export controls, primarily through BIS and the EAR for dual-use items, it's clear they're this dynamic, essential framework.
Dynamic because things keep changing.
Exactly. Technology evolves, geopolitics shift, the system has to adapt. But its core purpose remains. Striking that critical balance between enabling economic activity, allowing trade, and protecting really vital national security and foreign policy goals.
And understanding it matters for, well, almost anyone involved in international business.
I'd say so. It's not just the giant aerospace or tech firms. Any entity dealing with items that could have potential dual uses operating in that global commerce space needs to have some awareness of this.
Which brings us, I think, to a final thought for you, our listeners, to consider. Given this incredible pace of technological change we see everywhere and the constantly shifting global landscape, how do you think these export control systems like the EAR need to adapt?
That's the big question.
How can they stay effective in protecting security without, unintentionally stifling legitimate trade or maybe even slowing down scientific collaboration and innovation? What are the challenges there? What opportunities might that create for businesses and for the policymakers trying to thread that needle?
A lot to think about.
Definitely something to mull over. We really encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating and truly important topic.